This month's webinar is about disconnections in your throwing. And this really, as you guys are now starting to ramp up for your seasons, and we're starting to get into from the off season into the preseason, into the season, you're going to start throwing more and more. And so I thought a very good topic for this month would be really talking about a little bit about mechanics. Now, at the Texas Baseball Ranch, we really don't use the term mechanics in and of itself because that implies that there's one ideal way to throw a baseball. We don't view it that way. There's too many variables, too many people throw it too many different ways. We instead talk about mechanical efficiencies, not just mechanical positions or places in space and time. So I'm going to be talking about the 5 most common inefficiencies that can affect arm health and performance. And I'm not just talking about pitching now. I'm talking about pitching or playing from shortstop or center field or catching. So what are the common disconnections or inefficiencies that occur when someone is throwing that you can look out for? And so I'm really painting with a very broad brush this month, but I want to talk you through it. So first of all, certainty number 1 is the earlier the launch, the more stress to soft tissue. So we have here these 2 gentlemen here's Roy Oswalt and Roger Clemens. See how far out they release the baseball, way out in front of their body, way out in front of their front foot. Now, that is what we refer to at the Texas Baseball Ranch as late launch. Here is what is referred to as early launch. Do you see they're releasing the ball much, much further back into their body. Now, obviously this is a professional pitcher as well. So what's the deal with that? Well, here's the deal. The first thing that I want to squelch is there's a lot of people that talked about, oh yeah, this is a good idea, and this is called extension, getting extension. And that's not really a good term for it, in my opinion, because really we're not extending, we're rotating our body into that position, and that is completely different than just extending. Okay, we don't want to get to here and then extend. We're going to rotate into that position. And that's exactly what these guys do. Notice how much Roy Oswalt's front shoulder, or his throwing shoulder, is in front of his glove side shoulder, and the same thing. There's Roger Clemens' glove side shoulder and his throwing shoulder. On the other hand, look at these 2, that the shoulders now are even when the ball gets to launch. Or in this case, this shoulder is actually slightly behind. That position right here is going to create extra stress to soft tissue. Soft tissue. Well, that means soft tissue is connective tissue. That's ligaments and tendons. And really, obviously, that's what a UCL is. It's a ligament. And then the labrum and posterior cuff and everything around the shoulder is a lot of tendons and ligaments in there, and that's putting extra stress. So the first thing we need to figure out is, first thing we, I guess, need to address is that late launch is what we're doing. And whether we are an outfielder throwing it a long ways, whether we're a shortstop or whether we're a pitcher, we're going to want as late a launch as possible. Now, I do understand for those of you that are like, well, if you're from shortstop, you're not going to have as late a launch as you do from the mound. And that is exactly correct, because on a mound, we're going down a slope, and that allows us time to be able to get out here and still throw the ball. But still, if I'm a shortstop and I throw the ball back from here, that ball is going to sail and we're going to have some problems with it. So this actually does shortstops and catchers and outfielders. And we've all thrown a ball over our cutoff's head. We've thrown a ball over the first baseman's head. That is an earlier launch. That also causes greater stress to soft tissue. So that's what we're going to. Now, the next thing that I want you to understand is very important, is that these 2 positions, these 2 guys, this late launch is natural. Roger Clemens and Roy Oswalt were not taught or forced into that position. They figured it out, right? That's a natural way to throw a baseball. So now the question is, if that's natural, and I totally believe it is, why do these guys do it this way? And I believe it's because they get disconnected and it doesn't allow them to stay connected into this position. So what does the word connection mean? What am I talking about with connection? Well, connection is really having the body connected as it rotates. Any sort of early unraveling or any part of body working independently is a problem. So once again, disconnection, by definition, is a body part working independently of the whole itself. We want the body to work in tandem with itself, not separate from itself. And disconnections that you work separate from the whole, that causes exponential stress to soft tissue, and that's what we're trying to avoid. So now look at all these. Do you think there's Randy Johnson, Nolan Ryan, Roger Clemens, Greg Maddox, Chapman, Josh Beckett, Lincecum, Trevor Bauer, and Cliff Lee. Obviously, all these are elite throwers. Now look how similar they all are. Now, of course, they're different, but did Randy Johnson throw the baseball exactly like Nolan Ryan? No, absolutely not. But look how similar they are. Roger Clemens and Nolan Ryan? No, but look how similar. And especially Roger Clemens and Greg Maddox. Look how similar they are. This is connected. This is that weight-bearing heel plant that the body begins to rotate, and this is amazing how similar these are. These are the body is connected when they go to rotate. The more that if I get disconnected, then I have an earlier unraveling and I have an earlier launch. And that is going to be a problem. So we've how to get our young people, make sure they're connected, and then train them at such. And I'll be talking about that at the end. But now, I'm going to talk about the 5 most common upper body disconnections that you need to be looking for from your throwers or from yourself if you are a thrower. The first is across a acromial line. That's getting this arm back behind. Remember what I said before. Disconnections is body part working independently of the core. So that's a disconnection. That's a disconnection. That's a disconnection. That's a disconnection, and that's a disconnection, and we'll go over all 5 of those as we go. But cross-acromial line is certainly one of them. Now, deal is, obviously, here's where we want to get at weight-bearing heel plant. Do you think getting your arm in this position is going to make it difficult that when you get into weight-bearing heel plant, you're in this position? And the answer is yes. As a matter of fact, I've done over 20,000 video analyses, and I've never been able to see anybody have this bad of disconnection, and then when it gets to where the rubber meets the road, be able to be connected at the critical point when the body starts to rotate. So this precludes you from being connected. It's a disconnected motion. Now, some people are able to right the ship better than others. Some people just are, they are very disconnected and they stay very disconnected. Those are the people that have severe arm issues on medial elbow or anterior shoulder. So now, that's the first one, crossing the acromial line. Next one is the inverted W, where the elbow is above the shoulder and the hands below. Now, there are a lot of people on the web that will say the inverted W, Ron Wolforth is making this up, the inverted W is not a problem. And here is the truth on that, is that even in a cross-acromial line, all these disconnections are not yes and no answers. They're to what degree are they disconnected? A little bit behind, or if I get a little bit more behind, or I get way behind, there's a amount of disconnection. So you might be able to be a little bit across the acromial line and be able to get back and be connected. That's possible. The more you get disconnected, the more and more difficult it is for you to get connected when you get to weight-bearing heel plant. Well, that's the same thing with inverted W. I see a lot of people, C.J. Wilson, one of our clients, for example, has an inverted W, but then when it lands, he gets it back to connected. Now, is that ideal? Probably not, but it is way different than being in this position right here at weight-bearing heel plant. And this is also weight-bearing heel plant. His foot got cut off, but he is absolutely on the ground. So this position right here and this position right here and that position are actually at the same time. Look how much more this is disconnected and this has got so much more to catch back up. Now, there'll be some people that go, well, that's just timing. Well, of course it is, right? But it's not as simple as that. It's not just timing. It is about being connected from the beginning to the end. Once you're that disconnected, it's very, very difficult to get back into connected position. So what we say is that a severe inverted W, bad at weight-bearing heel plant, is indeed going to be a problem. Now, once again, if you're a little bit, or that by the time you get to weight-bearing heel plant, you have worked through it, then that isn't that great a disconnection. Now, how do we judge what's good or not good, or which one should you worry about? View it from an issue of pain. If you have medial elbow pain or anterior shoulder pain, and you have any of these disconnections at all, it's worth addressing it, right? Now, if you have zero pain, zero, because there are people, Don Drysdale threw very much like this right here and was Hall of Fame and never had any arm problems, right? So if you're able to pull that off, if you have no pain and if you have no recovery issues and you're able to throw strikes and perform, then I'm not really that concerned with it. However, if you have this issue and you have significant medial elbow pain or anterior shoulder pain, or you don't recover very well, or you have a hard time with command, then you need to address this. So it really gets down to that prism, how you've judged this as pain first, recovery second, performance third. Here's the third disconnection, elevated distal humerus. We're taking the arm and go up. There are a lot of people in the world that believe this is an ideal position, getting your arm up and getting your elbow higher than your shoulder. Well, I don't believe so at all. That in itself is a disconnection. If I gave you a kettlebell that was 4K and I had you hold it up, how would you hold it up? If I said you had to hold it up for 15 minutes, you'd hold it up like this, where the elbow is below the shoulder. That's what we call a packed humerus, and then you can rotate out of that. But if you did that, you wouldn't be able to hold it up very much. That is a disconnected movement. That is a movement that is individual or separate or independent of the trunk itself. And this is obviously an extreme example, but obviously we know that this, obviously with that outfit, that uniform, he was a major league pitcher at one point. Maybe still is, I don't know. But this is a problem, especially at weight-bearing heel plant. And look what the ideal does. The ideal very much looks like they have a kettlebell, and that is a packed humerus, and that is really sitting in there really nice. So elevated distal humerus, and primarily people have this issue because they've been told by their coaches to get their arm up. Now let's talk about that for a second. Am I suggesting now that Nolan Ryan and Greg Maddox throw from down here? Not at all. I'm saying that they start here, and then as they rotate their trunk, their arm comes up this way, not independently. So which one looks stronger to you sitting there? Get your arm up and then rotate, or stay down here and rotate and have your arm come up that way. Which one do you think would have more stress to anterior shoulder or medial elbow, right? And a lot of people will ask me, well, is this going to be anterior shoulder or is it going to be medial elbow? And my answer is yes. I don't know. I mean, where was your weak link? I don't know where that's going to show up. For some people, no, I had my whole career, I never had ever any problem with my elbow. Never. My problem is my shoulder. I've had a lot of teammates that have never had trouble with shoulder. Everything is elbow. So when you have a disconnection, you don't know where that's going to manifest itself. It almost always manifests itself in the weakest link in the chain. So once again, number 3, elevated distal humerus. This is generally caused by coaches telling their players to get their arm up. And then once their arm gets disconnected, they go to rotate, and that's going to be an issue. So another thing you hear from people saying, and I want everybody to kind of try this, if I keep my arm down here like this with my palm facing the camera here and I keep it down here, how long can I hold that? How does that feel? Now I bring my arm up and turn my palm away. I can feel the tension in here. And tension is never a good thing. We don't want to create that. So Well, and then also it's going to be really hard to get layback from here, and everybody talks about how important layback is. That's exactly right. But here's what happens. If my humerus is packed the right way, I will get natural layback as I move this way and that way. If I get my arm up like this, it's really hard to have any sort of layback unless I have some sort of another modification or another adjustment when I throw. So this is a very common one that I see. It's called elevated distal humerus. This is your humerus. This is the distal part of your humerus. This is the proximal part. So elevated distal humerus really is fancy words for elbow above the shoulder when you get into weight-bearing heel plant. Next one, forearm flyout. Probably one of the more common ways is that once again, if I stay connected and I rotate through here, I almost stay inside, I stay inside of 90 as I rotate. This is a position of strength, and my elbow really doesn't get engaged until my shoulders pass each other. Now it gets engaged, right? So my arm really works naturally that way. It doesn't work so naturally that way. So with centrifugal force in play, and it always is in play, if I'm greater than 90 when I get into weight-bearing heel plant and I start to rotate, that's exactly what's going to happen, and that's exactly what's happening here. As we have anterior shoulder problems, it's going to be extra stress here, and it's going to be extra stress here. And if you notice, this is exactly in the same position, right? So as this guy rotates and as this guy rotates, you look at the lower half and the upper half. This is different. This is Duffy, and this is Clemens. Now, once again, these two guys have over 700 wins, and what you're really going to look for, a lot of people are like, well, isn't 90 what's right, right? I always hear 90 right, 90's right. Well, if I'm here and then I go to rotate, my hand gets about 90 as I start in this process, if I'm looking at over here, and that's what I want. If I'm outside of 90 and I go to rotate like that, there is nothing for them to do but have stress here and here, right? So what this is going to cause, this is going to have a tendency to put extra stress here and here, and even if it's not Tommy John or anterior shoulder problems, what it's going to be is going to be very bad recovery because you put a lot of stress on soft tissue, and you're going to have a tendency here to have the ball high to your arm side and miss low to your glove side as your arm is kind of dragging behind you. It's a very classic case of dragging. This is Scotty Cashmere before he came to the ranch. This is what he had, a forearm flyout. I had Scotty when he was a senior in high school, and he was in here, just like Roger and Greg. And so when he in high school was very good, he had got a groin injury that started to get bigger, and then he started to have a little bit of elbow problems. So this is before he got released for the Angels. And when we went to work now, he's still not where he was in high school, but at least he's inside of 90. And that's really important. So once again, the degree of which this is disconnected, you don't have to have everybody in here. Not everybody is going to be that good. Just have it be inside of 90 is preferable. And then anything after 90, every little bit that goes greater than 90 is more and more stress and more problematic. Also, you can imagine, how's your breaking ball going to tend to be with this? It's going to be bigger, longer, loopier. You're going to have a hard time getting late life on it. So that's number 4, forearm flyout. As centrifugal force happens, for everybody, the arm comes away. If I'm inside of 90 and my arm, now I rotate, my arm goes away, I'm going to be okay. If I'm greater than 90 and I start, as centrifugal force happens, I get that out really early and I put a lot of stress on my medial elbow and anterior shoulder. So number 4 is forearm flyout. Number 5, the final disconnection, is really what do you do with the glove side, right? And if you look at quarterbacks in the NFL, they get this. This glove side is really stable, and they rotate in to their glove side this way. Now, they may have a little bit of this to it, and then when they get to weight-bearing heel plant, all that comes up and they rotate in, right? So there's some people that have a little quieter glove side. There's some people that have a little bit more active glove side. But whatever the case is, when you get to weight-bearing heel plant, that stops, and then we rotate in to that glove side. Now, what happens here is this is Strasbourg, this is what we call a front side block, where this is here, and now I'm going to rotate, and you can tell that's going to stop me on my rotation. That's not good at all. And the other one is what PV does here, is this his glove side is here, and his front arm is acting independently here. And the elbows actually should close together, and you'll see quarterbacks do that all the time. The funky hand position, quarterbacks will be here. You'll never see something limp-wristed or a quarterback with their here or pulled away. You won't see them pull away. So now, what's been the bad teaches in history is one is that the glove side is yanked. They'll teach you to yank your glove side, right? And so when yank, that's what happens. This pulls and this comes out. The second thing that happens is the opposite extreme, where the people tell them it's what I call a false block, and that's to have this happen out in front and then just keep everything right out here. And then also a block, front side block, so they were not able to do that. So what we're looking for is this is active, it's now stopped, and now this comes up and it rotates. So if you notice where the glove side is, it's right outside their front foot, right up chest, or a little bit above. And this is going to preclude rotation, and this really doesn't help out his rotation at all. So this is not just, the reason I bring these are not just 12-year-old kids. These are elite pitchers that are a little bit inefficient. And I think that's important that you see that one of the reasons why he could be able to throw so long and so well. These guys had such great longevity in their careers, and these have been far more often hurt. And it's not that their stuff isn't as good. These guys might have every bit as good a stuff as these two guys when they're healthy, but they're just not able to stay there for very long because they're always on the DL or have trouble recovering. So, what do? Well, we use the connection balls and the connection drill. And this obviously right here, if you take a look, I left Greg Maddox here. Can you see this ball fitting right in here? Can you see this ball fitting right in here? Can you see this ball fitting right in here? Yes. This helps you feel what connection is all about. And by the way, I'm going to brag a little bit. This is Eric Bender. Eric Bender is a longtime ranch guy. If you can see the background, here he is at the ranch. And Eric Bender is now the assistant director of player development at the Cleveland Indians. So he was a very good student of mine, became an employee of mine, and then eventually became an employee of the Cleveland Indians, and does a fantastic job and is able to take this stuff up into the Cleveland Indian organization. But what this is a kinesthetic cue on to be able to keep the arm or the body from acting independently. So if you have across a acromial line, this is a cue to be able to keep that there and not let you get disconnected. Same thing with inverted W, elevated distal humerus, forearm flyout, and glove side. They're kinesthetic cues, not verbal cues. I'll remind the body what it feels like to be connected. So now let's go ahead and close this thing down. Connection equals arm health and durability regardless of position. So let's one more time, let's go back to this picture that I think is important. I don't think you could argue that these four guys had a really, really long and fruitful career, and how you do that is you stay off the DL. You pitch innings, you eat up innings, you get wins, you get strikeouts, you help your team win. These four guys are very, very good at that, and if you take a look, how similar are they? The elbow is below the shoulder. Their arms mirror each other on their scap load. This arm is inside of 90, and the ball is literally facing neutral. It's not facing. A lot of people try to get the ball facing away, and if you do that, you can feel the tension in there. Elite throwers really stay inside, and the only one that I have in all this that actually has kind of a pronated takeaway is Cliff Lee. Everybody else is very, very neutral. Even this may look pronated, it's not. That's just a scapular load. Most of them, especially here and here, these balls are neutral, meaning that they're not turned in and they're not turned away, pronated or supinated, they're neutral. And the arm is just neutral as it goes. This connection is critical to late launch and therefore to health and durability. So when you see this position, these four became really the secret for us to understand health and durability, how to make sure, and obviously how hard did these three guys throw, as hard as anybody in the game, and of course, how good was his command. So regardless, and I've had also people tell me, well, you may not, I don't know if you can really throw it that hard with this position. Well, look how, there we are, the hardest thrower ever. It's exactly the same way. And the only difference between Randy Johnson and Chapman is really in a postural orientation. He's more upright, and he has a slight tilt this way. Other than that, it's almost identical. And that's really what's important. And we have a little bit more posture tilt than these two. And then obviously these two guys are incredibly similar. So now we go to so what, right? So what? Connection equals arm health and durability regardless of the position. So I could also show you pictures of Jeter, Puig, Ichiro, on and on and on, of Vizquel, Sean Dunston, some of the best throwers ever in Major League history from an infield position. Guess what? Exact same positions. Health and durability, explosive arm, they're all the same. Connection matters. Connection matters in hitting. Connection matters in running. Connection matters as you stay connected trying to field a ground ball or do whatever. Most common consequences of disconnection are pain. If you have arm pain, either a little or a lot, that almost always says that you either have some sort of structural misalignment, you have some structural issue, or you're moving not very efficiently. There's something going on, or possibly your workload is out of whack with your preparation. Now, what do most people pick? Well, it must be workload. And it's almost always the least likely of the issues. Most often, it is a combination of the structure is not very good, or the mechanical efficiency isn't very good, and then the workload just exacerbates the problem. It almost always never is the problem in and of itself. There's something else that is taking that to its place. Tightness. A lot of times we have these word games, like you don't say pain, you say tightness, tenderness. Do you have pain? No, but I get tight. Do you have pain? Well, no, I get a little tender, but okay, it's the same thing. It's just word games. Anytime that you have issues, especially from forearm to bicep or in the anterior shoulder, you have some sort of either skeletal misalignment, strength balance, something in that nature, or mostly always it's an and, you have some sort of mechanical inefficiency that is really contributing to that pain. Also, some people don't show any of this. I have several my minor league and major league guys that are disconnected, but they don't have per se pain, or at least they're not expressing it to me. They don't have pain, tightness, or tenderness. What they have is difficulty in recovery. That means I can throw 95 miles an hour on Tuesday, but Saturday, when it's my time again, I'm 88, 89. That is a clear sign that I don't recover very well, which is actually a clear sign that you're having some disconnection, which was putting extra stress, and your body just can't recover by the time you need to throw again. Now, typically in high school, it doesn't show up because you throw one every 7 days. So you may be able to avoid that. Your recovery time is a little bit longer. Then you go to college, it's the same thing. You go from 7-day cycle to a 5-day cycle when you get into professional baseball. All of a sudden, the 5-day cycle shows up, and we cannot recover. So once again, parents that are listening, what I look for guys is, first of all, pain, tenderness, or tightness. If they express that, then the next thing I would say, give me a scale of 0 to 10. 1 being very low, 10 being excruciating. When is at its highest? When you're throwing a bunch, what would you give it at its highest number? If they give you a 4 or above, it's certainly an issue. When that pain hits 4 or above, they are now trying to either modify their movement to reduce the pain, or they're pulling off the accelerator. They're stepping back, and all of a sudden you're not going to be throwing as hard because you're trying to survive the experience. So that's the first thing we look at. The second thing I look at is, recovery. Does your son throw really well one night, then next week when they're pitching, just doesn't seem to have the same stuff? It really falls back. You got to be thinking about it. How many times did Greg Maddux be pretty good every night for his whole year? He was pretty good every night. And it's not because he's mentally tough. It's because his mechanical efficiency was very good, and therefore he could recover very well. And that allowed him to be more consistent. So if you have a young man that's really varies in consistency, where either velo or the next night he can't even find the strike zone, it is almost always he has some sort of disconnection which is causing or contributing or adding to the problem. And then finally, and we call that bouncing back. How quickly can you bounce back? Same thing from a shortstop. My son played in an area code games a couple years ago out in Long Beach, California. By the 5th day of area code, most of his teammates could not go in and outs for the scouts because their arms were no good. Okay, that's just inability to bounce back, right? Just imagine that. There's all these scouts. There are 150 scouts in the stadium, and you decide, I can't go out for in and outs because my arm, here's your chance to show off for the scouts, and you have to bug out because your arm doesn't feel very good. I mean, these guys wait their whole life to get in front of those people, and so they really want to show off, and they can't because they can't bounce back. And so this is not just about pitching. This is about, you should be able to go out and really throw the baseball hard every single day. To a certain degree, right? I'm not saying throw 1,000 throws hard, but certainly if you're a shortstop and you do in and out and that's 15, 20 throws at full speed, you should be able to do that every day for the rest of your summer. If you can't, there's something wrong there. That's not a workload issue. That is a problem in bouncing back or recovery, and that's gonna be a big difference to you. And the last one is accuracy issues, and that is missing specifically when you have a disconnection, when you have an earlier, you're going to have a tendency to miss high to your arm side or low. You know that you hold on to it, so you miss low to your glove side. That's what I call the pattern, the arc, or the tangent of disconnection. High to your arm side, low to your glove side, and I mean really low to your glove side. Left-hander, same thing. High to his arm side, low to his glove side. Those are the signs that you are disconnected. So, you're going to go back. If you are across the acromial line, one of these things are going to have a tendency to happen to you. Inverted W, you're going to have a tendency to have this happen to you. So, for example, you're a shortstop, and you're an inverted W, you probably don't throw that hard, that long to get pain, tightness, and tenderness. But you go to the area code game and you got to throw every day, all of a sudden you have difficulties in bouncing back, and you never realize that because you're not playing every day. You're playing a high school season, you play 2 times a week. Well, if you want to play at the highest level and you're a shortstop, you're going to play 150 games. You play 12 in a month, you're going to play 26 in a month, right? And if you can't bounce back, you're not going to be able to play at the highest level. Same thing with catchers, same thing with shortstops, same thing with outfielders, and certainly same thing with pitchers. The next thing is you have accuracy issues. You struggle with hitting the first baseman. If you're a shortstop, what about in the outfield? Instead of hitting third base, you're throwing it way down the left field line because you're disconnected, or you're yanking it way over this way and it's going 15 feet up the line when you're supposed to be hitting a guy trying to go from first to third on you from right field. What about a catcher sailing the ball high into the outfield because he lets the ball go high to his arm side, or bounces it real short to the shortstop over on this side? These are signs of disconnection. So it doesn't have to be just pitchers. It has to do with everybody. And we want to make sure that you understand those disconnections and are able to deal with those on a regular basis. And how to keep your arm healthy, how to recover as fast as you can, and have good accuracy when you're doing it, and be able to do it on an everyday basis. That's what separates you as an elite thrower. So I hope that helps you as you go through this month, as you get ready to take your skills into the season And anytime that you're really having one of these issues, pain, recovery, or performance, you might want to be thinking about this issue right here and being disconnected and being inefficient in your throwing program or throwing pattern. So until next month, I'm coming to you from the Texas Baseball Ranch. I wish you the very best of luck. Keep getting after it, and we'll see you again next month, same time, same channel.